Good morning, and welcome to the 9:30 call. We'll just let folks join in. And as you saw, this is a two-parter with part one today, and then part two will be next Monday, March 11th. And so we love the two-parters in the 9:30 call. All right, we'll maybe give it one more minute.
Sounds good.
And yes.
I'm not cleared as a host to share screen.
Oh yes, you should be now.
Thank you.
And yesterday, Danielle Ewan joined us. I posted her slides on the follow-up folder, and we are doing a little bit of a website refresh. As we're gonna overhaul the website, but we learned a lot of lessons when we did the early childhood agenda. So we're first just kind of refreshing our current website, and we refreshed the 9:30 call page. So you'll see we have the 9:30 call at night, the 9:30 call in Spanish, and the best thing to do for anybody is to sign up for the weekly email list, because we'll announce all the 9:30 calls there. So that I can put that. I'm sure you all are on it, but some folks still are surprised that we're doing this 4 days a week. And the best way to see who's coming is to get the weekly email. So that I will put that link in the chat as folks are talking. And yeah, so let's get started. So we are featuring early childhood agenda work groups on the 9:30 call. We're recording them so that we can keep the information, and folks we'll post the recording of this. And we are excited to have work group 6 with us, which is about local infrastructure and partnership. And as I said, this is a two-parter. So today we're going to hear from the work group, and then Monday we're going to hear more from the Urban Institute, who worked on the Connecting the Dots report, which we will we'll put in the chat as well. But Kim, Eve, I'll turn things over to you. I know Wairimu was on her way back, so I don't know if she's here yet. And I know Marissa has been the SFC lead with work group 6 as well. So I'll turn things over to you, Kim.
Fabulous. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I see a lot of familiar faces, as I always do, and colleagues that are working hard on work group number 6. So welcome, everyone. Let me see if I can do the magical screen share. That is always the challenge, right? Okay, there we go. Hey, we see a screen. Slideshow. And now we see the slideshow. Look at that. Okay, I've accomplished step 1 in being successful on a 9:30 call. So thank you for joining us today. We are going to spend some time talking about what local infrastructure and partnership means, and why it's a component of the early childhood agenda. So we really just want to get you excited about the work that the group's undertaken, and perhaps whet your appetite to join us in the work ahead. To get us started, I just wanted to highlight a few folks that are part of our work. Eve Gilmore, or you think you're here? Are you pinned? Hi, Eve. You want to say good morning?
Good morning.
And share who you are.
Glad to be here. Eve Gilmore. I'm the CEO of Edward Street, and I also chair a coalition focused on early childhood, Together for Kids Coalition.
Great, thanks, Eve. I'm Kim Davenport. I am also at Edward Street, and I support kind of strategic initiatives and aligned programs in the birth to grade 3 space at the local level, and then join you all on many different advisories and projects at the state level, so that we can build a thriving structure for early childhood across the state. Wairimu, I'm not 100% sure if she's joined us. I'll give her a moment to see if you've joined us. Wairimu, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Wairimu Macharia. My background is in peace and conflict resolution, but I also am very passionate matters surrounding children and their well-being. I'm a mother, I'm a parent leader, and also a peace advocate in many areas. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Wairimu, and extra thumbs up and props and coffee for arriving back from being overseas and joining us on this call. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And also
And
Strategies for Children Advocacy Network
right.
alum from cohort 2.
Ooh, cohort 2, we got it.
There we go.
Thank you, Wairimu. And Marissa, would you like to introduce yourself? I know people know you, but we don't make any assumptions here. We probably have at least one new person here today.
You are right, Kim. We always introduce them in the 9:30 call. I'm Marissa Fair. I'm the Director of Policy at Strategies for Children. And as Amy mentioned, I'm the staff person that is helping to coordinate the work of Workgroup 6 around local infrastructure and partnerships with the other early childhood agenda work groups.
And I will say the backbone that Strategies has been able to provide has been immensely helpful, from kind of strategizing together, literally, and sharing tools and opportunities. The work doesn't happen without that strong support. So thank you very much. I know I speak for all the work groups, but big thanks from Workgroup 6 to you, Marissa. So to get us started, I wanted you guys to think a little bit about families and center on families, because that's what this work is about. So I'm calling this the 9:30 chat up, and if you can pop some ideas in the chat, we know those will be recorded, and so any of your stories or ideas are really helpful to us, and we'll continue to fill in, support, and grow the work that we're doing. So if you could think for a moment about a family that you've helped in the last month. What did they need help with? Were you able to help? And how easy or hard was that? So take a moment to think about that and perhaps pop some ideas in the chat so we can see of how you help families. They could be in your program. They may have come through your program. It may have been a call, your desk phone rang, or it's a parent that you work with all the time. What's something that you helped a family with? Any takers? Thinking about what you may have been able to do with families over the last month. Okay. Care coordination. Thank you, Roxanne. Excellent. Early literacy resources and ideas, like how to support reading with your sister-in-law. Thanks, Marissa. Preserving tenancy. Okay. Housing. Great. Other ideas. Eve,
We
thanks
just
for
had a
sharing.
bunch of folks join us from the waiting room, so you can see the questions on the screen that folks are answering in chat.
Thanks, Amy. Sharing closing resources, helping a family navigate a system to reach someone at EEC about their child not receiving services that are specified in their ed plan. Okay, so what's amazing about this work so far, is that you have just in less than a minute, we have more than a dozen examples of different things that you helped families with. Now I want you to think about the question of, could 5 other people in your organization help families that same way with that same problem? Maybe, maybe not. Would it be harder or easier for them? How about 5 organizations outside of where you work in your community? Could 5 other doors be the door that a family walks through and get help with that exact need? And would it be hard or would it be easy? And now I want you to think about, could you have helped 10 families with that problem last month? How about 100 families with that problem last month? There's a lot that families need help with, and there's a lot that comes through our collective doors. But we don't necessarily always have the tools at our disposal or the network solidified to make sure that families can be supported with whatever question they have, whatever need they have that impacts their health and well-being of their family and thinking about children in their earliest formative years, 0 to 5. Let me share a little bit of a vignette, a little anecdote. So you will be hearing from the Urban Institute team that worked on an amazing landscape report that was funded by the Commonwealth Children's Fund. And we have Melora and Lydia, I think, are here in the room today. And some of the authors of the story are here: Diane Schilder, Kim Lucas, Ellie Miles, and a larger team. And they did an amazing job of reaching out across the Commonwealth to gather stories, to talk with families, to talk with more than 50 different organizations and networks that are providing services to families. And they found some interesting stories. So listen to this one. When Maya moved to Western Mass with her infant and preschooler, she had no idea how to begin to build her community. Maya needed to find connections to other families, early education and care services, and other resources in the community. Fortunately, and that is a really important word, she walked into her local library. There, Mia met a person who connected her with play groups, led story time for families with young children, and offered information about free public preschool. Now, there's a little bit more to Mia's story, and I know that you will dig into some of the materials on Monday and learn more. But what's really important here is that this is a win, right? Maya had a need and she got some support. But Maya walked into the library and happened to go there. And there happened to be the right person at the right time in that space, in that place. And believe it or not, the person that she connected with was not a librarian. So I'm teasing you there to kind of think about the fact that families walk into all different environments at different times and have these needs. And when Mia walked in with her needs, she got them met. But there are hundreds of thousands of children under 5 in families that are not having their needs met because the systems that we have aren't as integrated or connected, so that when Mia walked into the library, she got her needs met, but that doesn't happen in every community in the same way with the same outcome. Another voice that we listen to are the providers' voices, the folks on the ground that are interacting with families all the time. And we talk often about no wrong door. This is another quote from a pediatrician who was interviewed for the landscape analysis in the report. And no wrong door sounds like a great phrase, but if you're asking me to do 100 extra things on top of everything else, or my staff who are overworked and overwhelmed, it's just not practical. The system doesn't support that. Goes on with a little bit more context, and this pediatrician says, something like 211, that provides local information and connections would be great if it really worked. These are really important telling stories and voices to listen to, and the connecting the dots materials from their landscape review, the reports, the recommendations, all give us this incredible amount of information that we have to listen to and cue to understand what we can do better on the ground locally for an infrastructure that can support the partnerships needed, the communication needed, and the systems needed, so that all young families or families with young children are able to get the connection to the resources they need. And we're not talking about a patchwork or a maze or the luck of the draw about whether or not you make that connection. So some key takeaways that we've been building into the work that we're doing is that families have vastly different experiences in their communities. And there's two also important components here: that families want a connection to and information about services, and providers, that's a bigger bucket. So anyone who's interacting with families, they're kind of wired to help, but they need accurate, timely systems and communication about what is available. These are just a few of the key takeaways that we're extracting from the Urban Institute's Connecting the Dots report, and are really using as a foundation for the work of thinking about what would a local landscape need to look like, what would the structures and systems and supports need to be, and how can we learn from what is successful locally and push that up and share that out in two ways. One, creating a blueprint for other communities to do this work, and two, to inform state level support that we would like to see at the local level. There are a few grounding questions that we were asking ourselves in thinking about the local context and what families need. I was going to have Eve share a little bit about these questions and how we've used them in some of our work.
So thank you, Kim. So I think Kim set the tone nicely to, sort of pull you in and have you realize that we're all part of this process. We have all experienced the struggles of trying to respond to families in an appropriate and thorough way. So really focusing on what do families want and need. We have to go back there. We have to find our lived experience voices in the constituencies we serve. And we really want to encourage you to start there in a strong place as you look towards this work. What can a community do to recognize its diversity and the stakeholders at the table? That's part of the conversation that we have to build into this blueprint, understanding that we need to truly reflect the communities that we're serving. And the nuances of a local community, as everyone knows, varies city to town to county in terms of the work that we're trying to respond to and who is helping to build this really non-existent early childhood system. What does a coalition of stakeholders need to do to identify and elevate family issues in their community? This is a tough one, but it has a lot of folks who will come to the table fairly quickly with their opinions and their ideas. And that's where this early childhood agenda workforce group has been critical, because there's a true recognition that people will come together. They are willing to problem solve. They're willing to take on key issues on behalf of young children and young families in their community. But it's very difficult to sustain that in an individual way or in a specific agency way. It truly needs to be a cross-sector, across the community type of response. But what we've learned is based on community resources, based on the will of community leaders, that manifests itself in different ways across the community. So the type of response that happens in Worcester will be different than the type of response that's going to happen in Pittsfield or in North Adams or in Falmouth on the Cape. We have to pay attention to that as we want to share the tools and the blueprint that we're trying to put together in this work group as we move forward into helping develop resources that will encourage other communities to join the collective intent of creating an early childhood system across the state. What can community leaders do to respond to and build a cohesive and coordinated early childhood system to support the typical and atypically unique needs of its families? Again, as I just shared, it's the moments of self-reflection, the moments to take a stop and really remind ourselves of the core questions and the core values that got us started in these partnerships. We need to do that work and revisit it periodically. We need to hear from other communities about what's going well or what are the challenges and barriers that they're confronting to help expedite the work that stakeholders are engaged in and to help bring together the diverse communities working on this issue that need common resources. So one of the things that we all recognize is the importance of state investment. And the fact that it's not just that we're looking for them to invest in Boston or to invest in Springfield, but rather that we are trying to get a comprehensive system that meets our unique needs in each of those communities. And the funding and the support and the advocacy have to reflect the constituency that we're serving. So it's a system design that is not in response, let's say, to a crisis, but in response to a prevention need that will have enormous payoff as we go forward. Kim, I'll flip back.
Thanks you. So what could this look like, right? So sometimes these things feel like, how are you going to get your head around it? So here's where we're going. Here's our mission. We are charged with conducting a landscape analysis of existing local coordination efforts and learning from them, from regional navigation hubs, family support centers, councils, other models across the state, and really consider the best practices. So as he was saying, kind of lifting up things that work. We know there are communities that have found parts of this that are working and have built that out, and we want to learn from them. We're also looking at out of state, other entities that have figured things out, particularly at a state level, that we can kind of look at and consider a model. And then based on the finding of the landscape analysis, develop a blueprint so that other communities, 351 of them here in Massachusetts, can think about their local infrastructure and have the tools to do that. We're not done with our landscape analysis. We have an amazing start with the connecting the dots reports, and we're still mining that. Our work group spoke at our last meeting about potentially doing another deeper dive in a survey with networks to think about kind of family communication and navigation, looking at CFCEs and family resource centers and kind of the groups that are regularly creating those connections in communities around the Commonwealth. How does that come together? So I think the best analogy that, you know, takes this from, okay, this sounds pretty heady and researchy, but like, what's the brass tacks? If you go to build a house and you're thinking about what you want in your house, there are certain things that are common, and that's what we want to be able to lift up. What are those common elements? And then there's, so in a house, you know, you kind of need a kitchen, you need a couple bedrooms, you need a living room, bathrooms, but you do have choice points that you need to make that'll figure out what'll work for you. So how many bathrooms and where they are, how many bedrooms, and what type of things do you want in those rooms that are special features for you? Those are choice points that you have when you're creating a blueprint for the house that you're going to build. And then there are the systems, and that's core to every house, right? You've got your HVAC, you've got your plumbing, you've got your electrical. Those have to happen, and those all have to work. All of these choices have to work in a connected and integrated way so that it works to meet your needs in the most seamless way possible. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to identify and lift up some of these common elements, identify some choice points, and then architect some key systems so that this can be the reality for families across the Commonwealth in your own communities, and then across the Commonwealth. So when they go from town A to town B or city A to city B, that they have opportunities to have what they need. So the blueprint is going to allow folks to think about building their local infrastructure and inform the systems that are going to support it across the state. Here's a little bit of snapshot and phases of our work. So how does this work? We're in the learning phase, and I think I would probably put that across the whole whole time that we're together. We're learning all the time, but we're using our landscape analysis information. We're building out on that. We're identifying promising features and practices. And as we're learning, we want to disseminate some of that information. We want to think about what's the next level of information we need, like a family connections and support survey. And we want to capture the learning from communities and be able to package that so that folks can look at that when they're thinking about their own infrastructure locally. We want to do some vision and planning. So thinking about a community assessment tool and the principles for how you incorporate in a real authentic way family voice and lived experience voice, and that they're at the table supporting these decisions and crafting the solutions. And then there's a whole host of activities that are about what do we need from the state system to support and strengthen that local early childhood infrastructure, and what are the impact on current legislation and new legislation and funding, et cetera. So that is a kind of where we're heading in terms of our group work and the types of things that we want to pull together and share with communities across the Commonwealth. A quick snapshot on some emerging local components. So from the work that we've been doing, we kind of have an idea of some of the key features locally that are needed. A convener, a backbone organization that's really going to keep bringing people around the table and doing that community assessment work and kind of feeding that in. There's family voice, there's a governance structure, there's business engagement and figuring out how to make sure children are visible. And we have examples in each of these categories that we've already kind of started to look at and rise up. So there's governance structures here in Worcester called Mayor's Council on Children, Youth, and Families. There's children's cabinets in several communities across the Commonwealth. Family Voice, we have some great examples to look to. Conveners, we've got alliances, we've got Together for Kids Coalition, we've got a number of different types of convening organizations and entities that we can highlight and spotlight. And then a few other roles. There's a supporting cast in your community. So what's that map look like? Funding, very important. And there's two components there. There's the literal dollars, but there's also the integration and understanding how all those dollars can play together. And we're looking at kind of what are those models and what would a local community need to support kind of integrating that funding, thinking of it at the community level, not just what we have at the schools or what we have through program A, B, or C, but really thinking about it much more holistically. And we have some interesting models of funding coordinators that we were learning about over the past week and seeing if that could be a supporting mechanism and a component. Raising awareness, we need to let people know why this is important, and making sure we're constantly thinking about the one door to more, both physically and technologically, and how do more families get what they need and have their needs met. So if you're interested, we'd love your input.
There's a comment in chat, councils on aging are so common. What about council and early childhood? I got a lot of attention in the
Excellent.
chat.
I love it. Excellent.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. So I'm hoping this whetted your appetite. You know, the group that's here, I'd love to give a huge shout out. I can't see everybody because I'm looking at my slides.
Yeah.
But if you're in Workgroup 6, your input's been incredibly valuable. And if you haven't been in Workgroup 6, come join us. So the little PSA, public service announcement, come on over. There'll be more learning opportunities through the 9:30 call because we want to share out as much as we can. So with that, I'll just pause, see if there are any comments or questions to raise up, Amy.
Sure. So lots of chatter in chat, lots of sharing of the next time of the meeting. If you want to stop sharing so we can see, great. I think the councils on aging, Carla shared, love this idea, would be amazing for this to be a high level goal of the early childhood agenda. It ties so many of the priorities together. Kelly Pellegrini, love the comparison. What a great presentation. Mary Kay Leonard, what I really like about the Urban Institute report is they make recommendations about what the state should do in order to support local coalitions, local customization. So many organizations which are part of the landscape are state funded. We will make this available at the follow-up page and the 9:30 call. I'll put that link in the chat. Cecile says comprehensive and thoughtful presentation, Kim and Eve. Awesome presentation, says Melora. Wonderful work. Thank you for such a helpful presentation. Wonderful framework. Justin says thanks and is also excited about the vision of scaling these infrastructures across the Commonwealth. Sounds like a thoughtful, impactful work. This is the future of providing Massachusetts families with what they want and need. Wow.
Ooh.
Let's leave it there.
All right.
And,
love it.
and so we are so grateful to have, this time on the 9:30 call to record these calls, to kind of share. And I think we've said this before, we're really trying to customize our communication around the agenda. So the best way to stay connected to the work is to sign up for each work group. There's a platform called Basecamp that folks are connected on, but we really are trying to just segment the communication so folks know when the meetings are, where all the follow-up materials are. And somebody, Donna said this is very helpful to better understand the work group. Great job. I guess Kim or Eve or Wairimu, any final comments?
Join us. We're having a good time.
That's great. And I see Diane is here, Diane Schindler from the Urban Institute. So we'll look forward to hearing from them on Monday. We broke 100 people again for the second day in a row here in the 9:30 call.